was raised to believe my brother died in a car accident until his ex-girlfriend found me online and said he'd been living under a different name in another state because my parents faked his death to protect the reputation after a drunk driving case. I'm 30 now, but what I'm going to share with you started when I was 8. For most of my life, I believed my brother Daniel was killed in a car accident at the age of 19. My parents told me it happened late one night on a back road not too far from our town in Kansas. They told us he'd been driving home from a buddy's place. It was raining, he lost his grip on the wheel, and his car collided with a tree. I recall standing in our living room and seeing my mom sobbing into my dad's shoulder and not knowing what was happening. The next day, they informed us there would be no open casket. That's something that lingered with me. They told us the accident was too severe. I didn't tell you because I was a kid, and you just do what your parents say. Daniel was 11 years older than me. I adored him. He would take me fishing, let me stay up to watch movies at night, give me candy when mom wasn't looking. He was the kind of brother you bragged about in school. Everyone loved him. He was clever, he was humorous, he always had some means of making people laugh. He was planning to attend college that fall, but he never did. My life changed after the accident. My mom no longer smiled the same. My dad worked even harder. We never talked about Daniel anymore. If I mentioned him, my mom would say, "Let's not go there, honey." So I stopped asking. Our house became quieter, colder. I matured, attended school, found employment in Colorado, tried to get on with my life. Daniel did not occupy my thoughts each and every day, but his face would occasionally come to mind, his laughter, his voice. I kept one of the photographs of us two fishing on the lake, smiling, toothless me. The only photo that my parents had left unbroken. Somewhere about 6 months ago, I got a Facebook message from a woman named Lila. She said, "Hey, I think you're Ethan's brother." I didn't know the name before. I thought it was a scam at first. Then she mentioned, "I dated him years ago. He told me he lost contact with his family after some legal problems. He said his real name was not Ethan." I simply stood there staring at my phone, stunned. I asked, "Sorry, who do you think I am?" She sent me the photo. It was Daniel. Same face, same eyes, just older, bearded. I dropped my phone to the floor. For a few seconds, I couldn't even breathe. I typed out, "Where did you take that?" She replied, "From my phone." We were together for almost 2 years. He told me he was from Missouri, told me his parents both passed away. I couldn't think straight. Told her my brother had been killed in a car crash when I was a kid. She replied quickly, "No, Ethan's alive. I met him. I lived with him. He worked construction in Idaho when I knew him. We broke up 5 years ago. But I swear to you, that's him." I didn't sleep last night. My mind kept racing back over memories, trying to find something that didn't fit. My parents never made me go see a death certificate. I had never seen a funeral photo, just a closed casket and a gravestone I'd visited a couple of times as a child. The next morning, I called my mom. I asked point blank, "Mom, what really happened to Daniel?" She went silent. For so long. And then she said, "Why would I ask that?" Her voice was shaking. I told her about Lila, the picture, the name Ethan. There was another silence that was very long. Then she said, "Ethan isn't your brother, Jacob. That's ridiculous. Someone's playing a mean prank." And she hung up. This was the first time in my entire life my mom had hung up on me. I tried to call my father. He didn't answer. I texted him. No reply. Hours later. He messaged me once, "Drop this, son." That was when I realized something was really wrong. I dug around for the next week. I found the local newspaper story when Daniel supposedly died. Brevity, vagueness. Said, "Teen driver loses control, crash kills." No reference to witnesses, no photo of the car, no coroner's report, just a 2-sentence obituary on the local page. I phoned an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Klein. She'd resided there at the time. She said she remembered hearing sirens that night but never saw the wreck. Your parents told everybody it was too painful to talk about, she said. We all just respected that. I couldn't get the name Lila had given me out of my head. Ethan. I Googled Ethan and Daniel's birth year, scrolled for hours. I found a small-town Idaho business directory that stated Ethan Miles, construction worker. No photo. But there was a number. I called it. My heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. 4 rings, and then it was answered. A guy's voice. Hello? I held on. Hello? He repeated. My throat went dry. I did it finally. Sorry, must have the wrong number. He spoke back. No problem, because that was the extent of what he said. And hung up. But not the wrong number. I knew that voice. It was Daniel. I sat there for hours, just staring at the wall, shaking. I didn't know if I was meant to be angry, relieved, or betrayed. How do you even sort something like that? I called my mom later that night. I said to her I spoke with him. I heard his voice. She started crying. The type you can't reproduce. The type that sounds like something is breaking within a human being. She said, "We did what we had to do, Jacob. You were too young to understand." I said to her, "What do you mean?" She spoke in a whisper. "He did something bad, something terrible. He would have gone to jail. We couldn't let that happen." That's when it hit me. The accident wasn't an accident. My brother hadn't died that night. He'd killed someone. And my parents had faked his death to keep it a secret. I just sat there, frozen, when my mom said those words. It was as if the floor had been pulled from under me. She was crying, but I was not even able to speak. What came out is, "Who did he murder?" She didn't answer right away. I could hear her panting, hard and shaking. Then she whispered, "A boy from town, his name was Tyler. He was 17 years old. They were drinking that night. Daniel shouldn't have been driving. He ran a stop sign and struck another car. The other child died instantly. Daniel was intoxicated. He panicked, fled the scene. The sheriff would have arrested him for vehicular manslaughter. He would have been in prison for years. I was ill. I remember pacing back and forth in my apartment, trying to make sense of it. "So you faked his death?" I asked. She replied, "Your father had a friend who was a mortician at the morgue. There was a burning car on the other side of the county that same night. They never apprehended the driver. Your father bribed him to let us switch names. We buried that man under Daniel's name. We felt it was the only way to save him." I couldn't believe what was coming out of my mother's mouth. My parents had lied to everyone, to me, to the entire town. They buried a stranger and told me it was my brother. I felt this anger surge through me. I said, "You made me think my brother was dead. You let me mourn. You made me stand over a man's grave who wasn't mine." She was sobbing. We didn't know what to do. Daniel called us that night, frightened. He begged for help. Your father told him to leave, start fresh somewhere where nobody recognized him. We paid him for a time, then we lost contact. We thought it was for the best. Better for everybody. Better. That was the word that burrowed into my mind like a splinter. Better for whom? Them? Him? Certainly not me. I hung up. I did not want to hear anymore. I spent hours sitting in the dark, my hands shaking. It was all a fabrication. Everything that I believed about my family. The rest of those few days, I was not able to focus at work. I only kept thinking about that call. My dad never called me back, never texted, nothing. He was playing like it never happened. My mom sent me one message, "Please don't tell anyone. It'll ruin us." That made me furious. Ruin us? What became of the family of the child Daniel killed? Did they ever get justice? Did they even know about it? I had decided that I had to find Daniel. Or Ethan, whatever his new name was. I had the number. I could have called again, but I wanted to see him. I took a flight to Boise, hired a vehicle, and drove towards that small town in that business guide. Its name was Grayson, Small town, one main road, gas pump and diner. I went around his picture discreetly, told them I was an old friend looking for him. Everybody else shook their heads, but some guy at the hardware store said, "Yeah, Ethan does construction out by the mill. He lives in a trailer off County Road 7. My heart was pounding when I pulled up. There was a small silver pickup truck out front, rust on the fenders. The trailer door was open. I could hear music quietly coming from inside. I went over and knocked. A man stood in the doorway, bearded, his beard growing gray at the edges, older, more fatigued eyes. But him, my brother, he just looked at me for a long time, like his brain was trying to catch up. Then he spoke. "Jacob?" I cracked when I said, "You're alive." He went out and looked around nervously before hugging me. I did not hug him back right away. I was still in too much shock. Then, after a second or two, he said to me, "You shouldn't have come here." I stepped back. "You let me think you were dead for 22 years. You don't get to tell me that." He turned aside. "It wasn't my choice, not really. Mom and Dad said it had to be this way." I said to him, "You could have called. You could have written." "I did want to," he said in a quiet voice. "But when you vanish, you can't come back. Not that simple." We entered. The room was small, neat, smelled of sawdust and coffee. There were photographs on the wall, him with some co-workers, a woman, and a young boy. I glanced at them. He noticed me doing this and said, "That's my son Caleb, 9 years old." It hit me hard. My brother had a life, a family, a child who probably didn't even realize that his father had been somebody else. I said, "Does she know who you are?" He shook his head. "No. She thinks that I am from Oregon. I never informed her. I did not want to introduce the rest of my life here." I sat. I felt this mix of sadness and anger which I just can't even describe. "You killed someone," I said. "You ruined a family, and our parents assisted you in vanishing." He rubbed his face. He was exhausted. "I know. I live with that daily. You don't believe me?" I wake up in the middle of the night and I hear the crash. I see it when I close my eyes. I want to make it something else, but I cannot. I said nothing for a while. Then I asked, "Why did you run away? Why not walk it?" He glared at me, his eyes red-rimmed. "Because Dad told me I'd never leave prison, that he'd see to it, that it was best if I just disappeared." I was scared. I thought he was telling the truth. We just sat there in silence. There was a clock ticking in the distance. I said finally, "Does Mom know where you are?" He nodded. "I sometimes call her from a payphone downtown. Dad made her quit a few years ago. Told her it was too risky, but she still sends me letters through a P.O. box. So they'd managed to keep this little secret for so long." I told him, "You have to turn yourself in." He cackled roughly. "And ruin all the work I've done? My son? My wife? You really think that would improve things?" I said to him, "You stole a life, Daniel. A man's son was murdered by you." He sat blankly, speechless for so long, then groaned, "I know. And that is why I don't have the right to live freely." That line hung in the air. I could feel the weight of it. Then he did something that still rings in my head. "You think Mom and Dad were protecting me. But they weren't. They were covering themselves." Dad had been drunk that evening too. He was the one who told me to drive. He promised that I would never tell a word. My stomach rolled over. "You're telling me Dad was there?" He nodded slowly. He covered it up to cover his own butt. And I let him. I sat silent for an entire minute after he uttered those words. My brain couldn't catch up. My dad had been there. He had been drunk too. I continued to play childhood memories over in my head, trying to come up with something that would have given it away. I remembered him coming home late that night, I remembered the smell of whiskey when he hugged me at the funeral, but I had been too young to put it all together. I exclaimed at last, "You're telling me Dad was involved?" Daniel nodded. He had just left the tavern and was driving home. I was following him in my pickup. He was all over the road. I flashed my lights, hoping he would pull over. He did slow down, then I passed him. I thought I could beat him home. But then I noticed lights behind me, too close, and I panicked. I took the turn too fast. That's when I hit the other car. He massaged his temples. Dad pulled up a second later. He witnessed the collision, saw the other boy's body lying there. He instructed me to enter his pickup. He said we'd take care of it. The police arrived an hour later. He claimed he had been at home the whole night. The sheriff was a good friend of his, and he helped make the report disappear. But one of them had seen my truck near the area, so they couldn't fully cover it. That's when Dad decided that the only way out was for me to vanish. I was cold. My dad, the man who'd taught me to hope for responsibility, for honesty, for doing what was right, he'd done that. He'd kept the truth from me and rendered his son invisible. I said, "You should have told me." He looked down. "What would it have achieved? You were a kid. You'd have gone running. Everything would have been revealed." I shook my head. "You have no concept of what it is like to have grown up thinking your brother is dead. You have no concept of how many nights I prayed that I could talk to you. How many birthdays Mom pretended not to cry about." He talked in a soft voice. "I do. She wrote me. All the letters. Every time. That made me angrier. So you just let her go through all that?" He did not reply. He just turned away. I could see guilt written across his face, but I could also see fear. The kind that refuses to leave even after 20 years. I asked him, "Does Caleb know something?" He shook his head quickly. "No. He just assumes I was poor when I was growing up and didn't have many family members. I didn't want to inflict this hurt on him." I stood up. "You can't keep it hidden forever, Daniel. Someone has died. There is a family out there who lost a son, and they never got the truth." He said to me, "You think I don't know that? I check his name every year. Tyler Morgan. His mother continues to post on his memorial site. She tells people how much she misses him. Sometimes she posts about forgiving whoever did it. But she has no clue it's me. She doesn't have any notion she's wasting her forgiveness on a ghost." The way he'd told me snapped something inside me. I'd gone there prepared to hate him, but seeing him all haunted and older and broken, I didn't know what I was supposed to do anymore. I asked him, "What do you want me to do?" He paused. "Promise me you won't tell anyone." "Not yet. Let me figure out what to do. Please." I didn't answer. He continued, "If you tell, they'll put Mom and Dad in jail too. You'll destroy what's left of them." That hit home. I hadn't even thought of that. My parents were in their 70s now. Jail would kill them. But keeping the secret made me sick to my stomach. I said to him, "You made the mess, not me. Don't expect me to clean it up." He spoke quietly. "I'm not. I just require a little time." I departed that night. I did not even bid adieu. I traveled for many hours without even playing the radio, simply allowing the silence to burn right through me. When I did finally reach my apartment complex, I found that there was a voicemail from my dad. His voice was steady, too steady. "Jacob, your mother informed me that you had headed to Idaho. I understand, but you must let this go now. You have no idea what you're messing with. If you keep digging, you'll ruin lives." Then he had hung up. That warning scared me more than anything. It wasn't anger, it was control. The same tone that he had taken when I was younger, and he needed to remind me who controlled the house. A few days later, I got a text from Daniel. "He knows that you found out about me. Take care." I didn't know what to do with that. Was Dad threatening him? Me? That night, I got another call. No number. I answered. "Jacob, it was my dad." "What do you want?" I snapped. "You've done enough damage. You think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. Drop it." I told him, You covered up a crime. You lied to the police, to everyone, for 20 years. His voice changed. I did what I had to do. I wasn't going to lose my son to prison for one error. One error? I lost it. He took a life, Dad. A 17-year-old boy. There was nothing. Then he spoke in a very cold tone. You don't realize what it's like to lose a child. I wasn't going to lose both of them. Then he hung up. I couldn't sleep after that phone call. I started to think how far this extended. Who knew? Was the sheriff still present? Did anyone else help? I checked public records for Tyler Morgan's earlier case. It was largely sealed. The final remark stated, "Driver deceased. Case closed." I sat there for a long period staring at that line. Driver deceased. They'd buried a falsehood in plain sight. I got a phone call from Lila a week later. She said, "Hey, are you okay? I saw this guy asking about Ethan, gray-haired old man, claimed to be looking for his son." I was frozen. My dad was in Idaho. I called Daniel right away. Didn't answer. I called again, went directly to voicemail. I sent Dad's there, call me now. No answer. The following day I got an email from an unknown sender, no subject line, just 2 words in the body. It's done, no signature, no name, nothing. I called my dad, I called Daniel. Neither of them answered. 3 days later, Mom called. She was crying. Your father's gone. Heart attack, they told her. He died in Idaho. I asked her, was Daniel there? She said, I don't know. He called me last night, apologized for all of it. Then the line went dead. I don't know what happened after that. Just sitting on the floor, looking at nothing. Part of me wished my dad's death had been natural, but something in me knew it wasn't. Something about that email, those 2 words. It's done. I didn't go to the funeral. Couldn't. My mother asked me, begged me actually, but I told her I needed time. The truth was, I couldn't bear the idea of standing by another grave that might not even be holding the right body. I'd already buried enough lies. My father's death wasn't real. It felt staged. One last play in a lifetime game he'd been playing. He was the kind of guy who always controlled even when he said he didn't. Maybe this was his last way of making sure that he'd never be able to deal with what he'd done. I spent days in my apartment, not eating, not sleeping. I kept going over everything in my head, wondering if Daniel had anything to do with it. The email, the timing, the silence afterwards, it all felt too convenient, too neat. I opened my laptop and looked at the inbox again. The email was still there. No name, no return address that I could trace. Only those 2 words. It's done. I phoned Daniel again, left messages. I have to know what happened. Call me. Nothing. I started searching Idaho news sites for any reference to a fight, a local fatality, anything. Nothing. No missing persons report, no suspicious occurrence report, no record of a fight. It was like my dad had just gone into this establishment, passed away, and disappeared from the face of the earth with no fanfare. A week later, a small package was on my porch. No return address. Inside was a picture and a folded piece of paper. It was an old photo, one of when Daniel was a teenager. The same photo of the fishing trip I used to put on my dresser as a kid. But this one had a note written on the back in handwriting that I all too familiarly recognized. It said, I'm sorry, little brother. Take care of Mom. D. I held on to it for a while. It felt like the air had been evacuated from the room. I wanted to be outraged, but I couldn't. He was my brother. He'd been a coward, I guess, but a victim of our parents' choices, our dad's control, and his own shame as well. He'd lived his entire adult life on one poor decision. Maybe he saw my dad's death as the endpoint of all of that hemmed him in. A couple of days later, my mom phoned once more. Her tone was gentler than I had ever heard before. She explained, I got a letter from your brother. He said he is leaving the country. He said he cannot remain here anymore. He's regretful. I asked her if she believed it. She replied, I don't know what to believe anymore. Then she said, "Your father's gone, Daniel's gone, and I don't even know who I am without them." I didn't know what to say. She wasn't blameless, but at the same time, I pitied her. She'd built her whole life on falsehoods, and now the falsehoods were crumbling. A month passed. I tried to move on, but there was something that attracted me back. I couldn't shake Tyler Morgan out of my head, the child Daniel killed. I looked up his mother on the internet, her name Mary Ann. She still lived in the same town. She had a small secondhand shop, posted photos of sunsets, pictures of old cooking, of her garden. Normal things. I sat staring at her page for hours, considering whether to shatter the news with her or not. One night I messaged her. I started with, "You don't know me, but I know something about your son's death." I sat there and gazed at it for half an hour before deleting the words. What would it fix? What would it ruin? The next morning, I set out for Kansas. My mom's place looked smaller than I recalled. She'd aged years in months. When I arrived, she was sitting at the kitchen table with an envelope in front of her. She said, "It came today." She gave it to me. It had her name on it, from Canada. A small note in Daniel's hand was within. It said, "Mom, I know that you will never forgive yourself. I won't either. I've thought about turning myself in, but I'm not going to do that to you. Dad is dead, and he should have done it to me years ago. I can't keep living like this anymore. Right, Jacob? I'm sorry I lied. I love you both. D." There was a return address at the end, but the postmark was 3 weeks old. I tried searching online. There was no record of him being in Canada. No arrest, no border crossing, nothing. Silence. My mom wept. I did not. I sat there in a trance. I took the letter home, folded it, and placed it in a drawer beside the old photograph. That night, I sat out on the balcony, gazing out at the city lights, wondering how all that my family had done to entomb one secret, a falsehood that had characterized every second of my life without my consent. My father preferred control over truth, my mother preferred silence over honesty, and my brother preferred running away over making amends. And me? I preferred telling you all this, for if I do not, then all this remains hidden. I still think about Daniel occasionally. I wonder if he's really alive somewhere watching the sunset in some small town under an assumed name, or if he finally did what the conscience had been pushing him to do all those years. I'll never know. A few weeks before I went back to our hometown, I went to the cemetery. Daniel's grave was still there, the one which didn't really belong to him. I stayed a bit, recalling that other guy, the stranger my parents buried as their son. He didn't have a name, didn't have a story, just became us. I headed away, the Morgan family plot having a little stone for Tyler. Fresh flowers had been placed there. His mother still makes the trip. I needed to inform her everything. I wanted to climb up, hand her the letter and say, "Here, this is the truth you never got." I didn't. She slept peacefully, and I could not deprive her of it. Perhaps some truths do not get to be dragged into the light. Perhaps they just stay with the people who bear them. When I went back home, something became clear to me. I thought for 22 years that death had destroyed my family. It wasn't death, though, that destroyed us. It was the lies we told in order to survive. That night, I deleted the email containing, "It's done. I don't need proof anymore. I don't need to know if Daniel's alive or dead anymore. I've learned that I'll never find out, because the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it simply changes the shape of the cage you live in."